plumber cut it level with the floor, and then you have to do level or.
So what I need to tell him is just to leave the pipe flush with the slab.
I would actually have him leave it 2 inches high.
2 inches high.
Yeah, so you can level the floor.
He doesn't need to install anything, just the pipe.
Just the pipe. No clamp drain, no rubber liner. Just stub your 2-inch pipe up out of the hole, and you'll take it from there. Okay. So you cut the pipe flush with the top of the floor here.
After you
do your leveling. Correct. Level the floor, then cut your pipe. Make sure your stud spacing is 16 inches on center. The blocking around the bottom here, that's just for, that's considered best practice. So if I'm working in the shower and I kneel down and my foot hits that wall, it's not gonna kick the board out of the channel. So this is just some added protection. It won't void your warranty if you don't have it. In some cases, you just can't put blocking there in condos where they have like maybe pipes or wires or something. So it's not gonna void your warranty if you don't have this, but it's considered best practice. So Santos, you're recording, Santos? You guys are welcome to record this if you guys want, and you know refer to it later. That's no problem. So 16 inches on center, blocking. Make sure your studs are plumb and level. On day one, like I said, have that bag of rapid set self leveler. Also maybe have some extra 2x4s if you need to sister up to the existing. We don't recommend any wet shimming. Have you guys heard of that terminology, wet shimming?
No.
Okay. Good. Don't worry about it. It's some companies are saying to spread rapid set, thin set on those studs and level the walls like that. We don't recommend doing that because thin set was not designed for that purpose. So use shims, maybe sister up a 2x4. I've seen some guys use metal framing. You know, the metal framing track, it's 1.5 inches wide and it slips right over your 2x4. So then you can pull it out with a level or a straight edge, level with the rest of your studs, and fasten it from the side. So there are some really...
I normally do the
Sistering up? Yeah, I did that too for a long time until that guy told me that metal framing trick, and I'm like, that's pretty slick, I like that.
Yeah.
It just slips right over, you pull it out, level with the rest of your studs, fasten it from the side.
That's a great idea.
Yeah. So little things like that, you know, if nothing else, you pick up a little trick here and there. The cardboard is here just for the demonstration. You don't want cardboard on the floor on the job site. We're going right to the concrete or right to your hardwood subfloor. If you're dealing with wood construction, make sure your floor joists are 16 inches on center also. 16 on center with 3/4 inch ply. If you're dealing, I know some builders, especially here in Florida, like to build 24 on center. So if you're dealing with 24 on center, throw an extra layer of plywood on top of that, okay? But that 24 on center will take away our option to do a curbless shower unless we build up the rest of the floor, okay? So we have to have that extra layer of ply if we're on a wider joist spacing. So that's it for the prep. So what we're gonna do now is get the shower base, and let me set up my bench. You guys can use plastic sawhorses. I got this old Husky bench.
This is awesome. I have one just like that.
Yeah, it's a sweet tool, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's amazing how much weight it holds. 1,500 pounds is what this thing holds.
It's so nice.
There's another cool tool this guy has called the Grabo. Have you guys heard of the Grabo? It's a new tool. It just came out. What it is, it's a handle. You guys should get this Grabo to sell. This is an awesome product. So it's a handle. You press the button on the handle and it creates a suction. So if you're dealing with like these large format tiles now, or a piece of glass maybe, something like that, this is not just for Wedy. This could be for tile installation. You press that button, it suctions on, and you could move even the shower base. It'll grab the shower base, you can put it right, even with that coating and pitched, it'll do that. I'm not gonna spend too much time talking about the Grabo. I'm not selling a Grabo. All right, so we get our sawhorse set up. Pull the shower base out of the box. Mark the center of the shower base with a crosshair. So you see I just draw me a grid on the bottom of the shower base, marking the center. So just pop you a chalk line, straight edge, and a Sharpie. I used a silver Sharpie here. It tends to show up a little bit better. So that gives you a crosshair right over the center here. I set this on my sawhorses upside down. We want to make our initial cut from the bottom. The bottom is flat, the top is pitched. So we make our first cuts from the bottom, so our cuts around the side are all straight up and down, okay? We are working upside down here, so it is, important to mark, the front, back, left, left, right, because it's easy to get disoriented when you're working upside down like this. So mark the center, come over here to our shower base, our shower space, and we want to find the center of the drain pipe. So I measure from the studs to the center of my pipe, and you might want to get a scrap of something. Here we go, I got scraps of Wedy board. So I'll measure this side, we have 18 inches. So here I'll mark 18. The back of the shower, 18. This side I'm not going to worry about, we're going to let that overhang. And then we're using the lean curve. So that lean curve overlaps onto the shower by 1/2 inch. It's 2 inches wide. So I want to mark 1.5 inches from the edge here. So that allows that'll make my curb flush out with this, because the curb is going to overlap on top of the shower base. So we measure from this mark to the center. That pipe is right here. 13 inches. 13 inches. All right. So now to cut the shower base, I simply measure from my center marks over the 18, 18, 18, and 13. So this side was 13. I can just measure over from this center line, 13 inches, pop a chalk line and rip it. Also, my preferred method for doing this is to use the circular saw and a side guide. So this is a tool that probably ended up in a drawer. You never use it again. Let me just bring this over here so I'm not walking back and forth.
There's not too much dust if this is cutting this, is there?
No, very little. Otherwise, we wouldn't be doing it right here. Yeah, so when you're doing this in Mrs. Jones's house,
That's what I'm saying.
yeah, she's not going to be coming into the bathroom like, what's this mess? It's not going to kick up a ton of dust
Like a hardy
in your
board
customer's
or a
house.
wonder board or something.
Exactly. Yeah, you can make all these cuts right there where you're working.
Okay.
So to make my initial cut, I always use a circular saw. Okay. And if I measure from the center 13 inches, and this is a 3 foot by 4 foot base, and it started as a 3 by 4. I already cut this down, and I will make a cut here in a minute so you guys can see. I know that the center is 18 inches. If it's 3 feet this way, the shower base is 3 feet, my center of my shower is right there in the very center at 18 inches. So if I measure 13, I can just set this side guide for 5 inches, and I know I'm going to end up with 13 inches. I prefer to use the side guide anytime I get a chance. So we'll use this to recreate the channel, but for our initial cut, I just cut around the bottom and then dry fit. So after you make your initial cut, you always want to dry fit. So you take the shower base, dry fit it on the floor, and what you're looking for when you dry fit it is that you're tight against your studs and centered over the drain. That's what you want. Everything tight. So these walls are never, they're not always perfect. Sometimes you're going to be tight over here and loose over on this side because this wall is crooked like this. So now we may need to cut this shower base crooked, or maybe this stud is kicked back. So maybe we need to sister up a whole new 1/4 inch piece of board or 1/8 inch piece of board to this stud so our board sits tight in the channel. Maybe that'll just correct the wall and make it easier to install tile once we get to setting tile. So make your initial cut, dry fit it on the floor, make sure you're tight against your studs, centered over the drain. After you get it cut the way you want, now you want to recreate that channel. You don't want to recreate the channel and then dry fit it and realize, oh shoot, now I got to make an 1/8 inch adjustment. Now I got to recreate the channel in 1/8 inch and the cut in 1/8 inch. So make your initial cut, dry fit it, now make the channel. Let me
Think
cut
about to buy another board.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I am going to make one cut. This is already pre-cut. I do want to show you guys how to cut this. I brought it in here. Here it is. So this one is already, I cut on it a few times. I'm going to make one rip, and then I'm going to recreate the channel. so you guys can see how I do this. Now this is a highly modified cement-based resin and a fiberglass mesh coating. So if you're going to be wearing a mask at any point during this installation, this is the time to wear it, okay? If any of you guys want masks, you're more than welcome to grab them. I'm going to try to stay over here so it doesn't blow dust everywhere. It's minimal, so I don't think you really have too much to be concerned about. Yes, sir.
Would you recommend using eye protection as well?
100%. Yeah, I've gotten a chunk of this in my eye before. That's no fun either. So wear some safety glasses, ear protection, just proper gear. So I'm just going to give this a quick rip. Stand like this so it kind of blows the dust that way.
Minimal dust.
See, it wasn't too bad.
Faster than cutting a hardy board.
Yeah. So
Cleaner too.
I'm gonna give this a sweep. I got a broom. So we make our initial cut, okay? We dry fit it, now we recreate the channel. So when I cut a lot off of this, excuse me, I'll apologize. So when I cut a lot off of this, it has an equal height around the perimeter when it starts. Say I took 6 inches off. This is sloped 1/4 inch per foot. So in 6 inches, it slopes 1/8 of an inch. So I wouldn't want to just go from channel to channel because that would be a 1/2 inch on the ends here, but 3/8 in the center. So I always want to measure down from the center, which is going to be my lowest point on the shower base. I measure down 1/2 inch up from the bottom to that mark. Because my bottom is flat, I measure up to that 1/2 inch mark and I transfer that measurement to both ends. So in that case, I would be 5/8 of an inch on both ends deep, but a 1/2 inch in the center, which is where it really counts. And to do this, I always use just a straight edge and a razor blade. And we want to make sure we use a fresh razor blade. A dull razor blade tends to roll that foam. Another good tool you guys may want to pick up if you don't already have one are these extendo blades. When you're dealing with the 2-inch board or some of these thicker shower bases, those are handy. What did I do with my tape measure? Oh, here it is. Here we go, it's starting. Gotta keep track of my tools. So here's the top of the base. I measure down a 1/2 inch from the top, from the center, and place a little mark. It's okay to be a little deeper, I just don't want to be less. So I measure over here. We're at 13/16. So I'm going to transfer that measurement to both ends. 13/16. 13/16. Grab myself a straight edge. I like the T-squares, but for this, I can use this Ligner recess kit. We'll use that. It's got a straight edge. So I'm going to set this right here. Get some of that felt out of my way. Or that mesh, I should say. Okay, I line it up on my marks. There we go. Fresh razor blade. And on this first pass, I usually just score it lightly. I don't try to go all the way into the foam, the first track, because I tend to roll the foam when I do that. So give it a couple scores. Now I don't need the straight edge, I can just freehand it. Now we'll cut the top. You could do the top first and then the side next. It really makes no difference. To set the side guide for the top, I use the existing channel. So I would take this, drop it on down, loosen this. depth, lock it in place, bump the side guide over, lock that in place as well. Now I'm ready to rip this one more time. So put this mask back on. Now, this is pitched, so I want to make sure that I keep my saw blade straight up and down if possible. Like this. I don't want to be blowing the dust right at you. This side.
Not much. Don't go that far.
This way you can see that.
Glasses back on so I can see. Alright, we may need to run this through one time from the top because we were only set at a 1/2 inch and it may be a little deeper than a 1/2 inch. And I don't have to worry about going too deep because the product's internally waterproof, so I'm not really concerned about going too deep. Yeah, I really like that this is internally waterproof. Makes it easy to work with. I don't got to worry about my helper behind me maybe dropping something heavy or poking a hole in it and damaging anything, because he would have to go all the way through that to damage it. So you see that piece just fell right out. And maybe that's not as clean as I like.
With the liner, you know, anything can punch and
Oh
be
yeah.
in trouble.
And sometimes those rubber liners get installed and they become a trash can on the job site, right? Maybe it's a little while before,
Right.
you know, I mean, screws, the drywall guys are like, hey, there's my trash can. So just take a sanding block, like a drywall sanding block, kind of buff that up a little bit, make it look a little prettier, bam. So now we got a nice level channel all the way across. We're a 1/2 inch at the lowest point, and maybe a little deeper on the ends, but that's okay. So that's how you recreate the channel. Real simple, fast, easy. And I'll come out and help you guys the first time doing it. You know, if we don't want to take the training wheels off yet, I'll hold on to the bike seat that first job. So, all right, so we're ready to set the shower base. We got everything cut and modified. But before we set anything, we want to attach the drain assembly to the shower base. So let me get my sausage gun here. What did I do with my sausage tubes?
Right there.
Ah, thank you. So this is the Wedy sausage gun. These are the 20-ounce tubes. You get more for your money. You know, if you buy the sausage tubes, we do have the 10-ounce cock tubes. So if you guys want to get the 10-ounce cartridges, that's fine. Like I said, 1 ounce per square foot of wallboard. Remember that formula. So you get the sausage tube, insert it through the top like this. If you guys are using a lot of Wedy, you're going to want a sausage gun. It'll save you from switching out tubes. You don't have to cut this whole thing off. Just take your knife, a little stab right next to that's it. Just poke that in once, you're good. We don't want that coming off in our gun, so just that little stab is all you need. We're gonna take the, here we are. And we'll just get these black tips. When you buy the gun, it comes with some clear tips. I would always recommend using these black tips, because the clear tips, the joint sealant seems to get around it and into these threads. So use the black tips. I never had that issue. And we'll cut a little bit bigger hole in this. We want to be generous with the joint sealant. So rip you a hole about like that, so you're dealing with a nice, decent bead. You're gonna get your drain assembly box. When you pull out the drain assembly, this is what it looks like. Comes fully assembled. So remove the lock ring and the rubber gasket from the inside so it'll slip over your pipe. This goes on after the shower base is installed on the floor. We're going to attach this to the shower base. So we're going to take it apart and put it together just like it came apart. So for this, I prefer to use something like this. Set it upside down. I'll do it down here so you guys can see. In all the videos you see, they apply a bead of joint sealant on the rim right here. I don't prefer doing that because when I slip it in through the top, I get joint sealant all over my threads. So what I do, just like you're doing like a sink or with the putty and all that, or pipe dope, whatever you want to call it, just give this a spin like so. Leave a nice generous bead around the edge. See, I'm not skimping on the joint sealant. Not just trying to sell more of it either. You just be generous, it's easy. So you get your bead of joint sealant like this, stick it in through the top, press it in and give it a twist. Okay, kind of smear that joint sealant, get all the air out of it. From the bottom side here, I'm gonna do the rubber gasket. This is your friction gasket. These come in paper or plastic. It just keeps this from binding up on the rubber as well. You guys are, same thing, just like a sink installation or something like that. So we're gonna hand tighten this. I usually hold on to this side and just hand tighten. No channel locks, no vice grips, none of that. Just tighten it up by hand. Bam. So we got excess joint sealant sticking out here. We'll grab me a napkin. We're going to take about a 5-minute break after this so I can mix up some thin set. Yeah, we got a 5-inch. So your pipe is a 5-inch hole around that pipe. Just so you know, Elson's looking at it right there. Yeah, very good. That's how you want to have your plumber set it up. So
Yeah.
I'm just going to run this around the edge here. Staying on track with time, we're doing good. So if you get it on your finger, some mineral spirits, something like that, will clean it up, goof off rags. It's not water soluble, so can't rinse it off. But if you get it off right away, you see it comes off pretty easy. If you leave it sit, you're gonna be wearing it for a couple days, unless you wanna use some gas or something like that. Probably not the safest thing to wash your hands with.
Acetone.
Acetone works, yes. So we got our floor prepped. This now for the Primo showers, you want a 5-inch hole around your pipe to allow access for this drain assembly. Okay, this is about 4 inches, but we say 5 inches to give you plenty of room. In concrete slabs, I know we're sometimes chiseling it. I've been approved for up to 7 inches. Okay, so if you can't get a 5-inch hole for whatever reason, 7 inches is okay. Just try to maximize that coverage, so as close to 5 as possible. When you're dealing with curbless showers, the Ligno system, we want to use a 6.5-inch hole, okay? And for the Riolito shower base, which is the line drain, it's a slightly different drain assembly here, okay? So next year, they're all going to have the same drain assembly. We're changing this out. So this is the last 6 months of this drain assembly. So this is the pipe. This is a template for the pipe. So you would have your plumber stope your pipe, do this, trace it, jigsaw, cut out your hole. This just is a template to allow your drain assembly to sit in the hole here, okay? So this is your line drain assembly. This would attach to the bottom of your line drain and then sandwich and create that compression. So the drain assembly for a line drain is a little different. Like I said, I'll come out and assist. If you are doing this, be sure, do you guys do a lot of line drains? Charlie?
I do some, yeah.
Okay, so this is ABS. So you're connecting to PVC. The connection from ABS to PVC, it's not the tightest, okay? With PVC to PVC, it's tight. So you have to use ABS to PVC transition glue when you're dealing with these, okay? Like I said, next year, it's changing out. They'll all be compression fit. You won't be dealing with any glue. So just wanted to touch on that real quick. Now, the question is, do I want to mix up thin set or do I just want to explain? Because I don't know if it's necessary for me to stop and go mix up thin set. You
don't
guys
have to.
understand
Yeah.
when I say thin set. So now we're mixing thin set, right? Get these out of the way, clean up a little bit. All right. So I would spread thin set on the bottom side of this using a 1/4 inch by 1/4 inch notch trowel. I had my trowel right here a minute ago. So,
It's on the floor over there.
Thank you.
On concrete slab and on wood slab, the same thing?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, 1/4 inch by 1/4 inch notch trowel. Use a modified thin set mortar. So you want to spread your notches on the bottom of the shower base and notches on the floor,
Right.
all going the same direction. Okay, no, no swirl patterns. Very important to comb all the lines in one direction. So maximizing the coverage. If you're dealing with the larger shower bases, like you said, you had some really big bases. If you're dealing with a 5x7 base and you go to put thin set on that, it's going to be mighty heavy. So we say a 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch is also approved. You can do 1/2 by 1/2, spread notches on the floor, flat trowel, thin set on the bottom of the shower base. So you can do 1/2 by 1/2, notches on the floor, flat trowel on the bottom of the base, or 1/4 inch notches and notches. Okay? So we spread our thin set here, we spread our thin set here, we stick the shower base to the floor. We would also want to make sure this is clean. So we take our broom, dust this off, and we're ready to stick it.
I have a question about the pipe.
Yeah.
Is it supposed to be flush with the floor,
Flush or an 1/8 inch high.
or an 1/8 inch high? Okay.
Yeah, for the primo showers. The ligno showers, the pipe is cut 5/8 of an inch below the substrate. And for the Riolito, that piece I showed you, for the line drains, it's 1 1/4 inch below the showers. Next year, all of them are going to be cut flush. You won't have to deal with cutting it lower, because when you cut it lower, you need an inside cutter. You guys familiar with an inside
Yeah.
cutter?
Yeah.
So, you guys know,
Mhm.
little miniature circular saw. So, but next year they're all going to be cut flush. Right now we have those. So this is the primo. You just cut it flush. After you stick the shower base to the floor, we can go ahead and do our drain hookup. So you have your rubber gasket. Make sure the bevel faces up. There's even a little print on here that says this side up. So make sure that you have the drain going up. And you can get right on top of your shower base to start working. I would recommend stacking some boxes of tile or some bags of thin set to keep it compressed while it cures. And if you're dealing with wood construction, maybe screw a 2x4 right here and right here to keep it pinned in place while you're working on it, because you don't want it shifting away from the wall. If you're on concrete, maybe a box of tile here and a box of tile here. You just keep it pinned in place. So we take the bevel on the rubber gasket facing up. We slip this onto the outside of the pipe. Feel free to get a closer look at this too if you want. You guys can hop up here. So it is a tight fit. So you might need to use some Dawn dish soap, maybe some sweat as a lubricant, I don't know. And I just pull it from side to side. So I pull the pipe this way while I work this side on. And right on around the pipe, right? So I want this rubber gasket to be flush with the top of the pipe. And there's a ring at the bottom of this, so I physically cannot push this rubber gasket too far. It's impossible. And Chris, will you find me one of those keys? I have a drain assembly box up here somewhere, and that metal key should be in it. I know I have one over here in this box, so.
Here's the box, I don't see it though.
Here's the key, I got one right here. And this, all right. So, I take this key that comes in the drain assembly box. It's dull enough it won't damage the rubber, so I can pull this from side to side and just work this rubber gasket down over the pipe. And again, I want that rubber gasket to be flush with the top of the pipe or below. It's okay to have it lower. You don't ever want the rubber gasket to be higher than that pipe because it won't seal properly. So just work it on around, pull it from side to side. You don't got to worry about pushing it too far because, like I said, there's a ring down there It's physically impossible. So you see right here, I'm lower than that pipe all the way around. You guys can feel. If you want to stick your finger in there and feel it. See?
Well, lower is fine.
Lower is fine, yeah. Flush or lower. So the lock ring has a bevel on it. The bevel goes down. I put this in here, put the key in, maybe stuff some rags or something down in there. You don't want to be fishing for it later. This is magnetic, so I spin it to the left until I feel it fall into the track like that, so I don't cross thread it. And then I spin it to the right, and I'll feel it cinch up on that rubber gasket. So bam, it's tightening up right there. Now as I crank on it, if I see this move, because this, I just did this sealing, it's still wet. So I'm cranking on it, bam, you see that start to move a little bit? I hold up, now I'm gonna do my wallboard. I'll come back and give another tweak on that later, put a little bit more torque. This 4-prong tool is something that's sold separately. It fits down right in the notches, and now you can get a hex head or like a socket wrench, apply some pressure and get some more torque on it. But yeah, I crank on these things. I've never had a problem. No sealant, no silicone, none of that. But yeah, it's a standard compression drain, and it's as simple as that, okay? That's it for the drain connection. We're gonna get into hanging wallboard right away. So, got our shower base on the floor. We're gonna put some wallboard up. I got a couple pieces already cut.
And you cut those with a blade, right?
Yeah, I saved one piece, so we are gonna cut the board here just like I did the shower base. So I cut one channel. I'm gonna cut a board here too, so you guys can see cutting the board. And if y'all wanna cut the board, you're welcome to. But I just wanted to do one piece and show you.
Okay.
So,
Can you cut it just with a razor?
yeah, just score it with a razor blade
Yeah.
and pop it. I mean, it's as simple as cutting sheetrock. You can't back pop it. You know, with sheetrock, you can pop it this way, pop it that way.
Right.
No, you gotta just pop it, score the back as well, okay? So, cut our board to fit. Now this one was pre-cut, so you guys don't just gotta stand around and watch me measure and all that. So, we always wanna dry fit the board. You'll see me dry fitting is extremely important. We dry fit the base, we dry fit the board. This was a step that I used to say, man, I know I'm in the channel, I don't know why I'm doing this. Like, I was in my head kind of griping a little bit. And one time, it really saved me. So I thought I had it in the channel and I wasn't. So what you do is you dry fit the board in the channel, give the boot a little bit, make sure we're tight up here. Say we're real tight down here and we're loose up here. It's hard to shave a sliver off of that board. So a really handy tool, I got it. A really handy tool is a Drywall Rasp. You guys probably all have one of these laying around, you know, rather than trying to shave a sliver, just buff that side. So I noticed down here, this corner was a little bit tight and the top was loose. So I had to come over here, give this a bit of a buff.
Could it be off an eighth, quarter inch from the wall, or what's
1/8 of an inch.
1/8?
1/8 of an inch is the tolerance that we have with this
Okay.
product. So we want all our cuts to be tight. The reason for that is because that sealant cures under compression. So we can't have a big 1/4 inch gap or 1/2 inch gap and pump joint sealant in there and say, all right, we're good. No, we want our cuts to be tight within 1/8 of an inch because that's how that joint sealant cures. So if I ever came out to a claim or on a failed shower, I'm looking at those cuts. I'm taking pictures, you know, so as long as all our cuts are within 1/8 of an inch, you're solid. I never want to show up to a claim and look for a way to get Wedy out of it. Like, because our warranty is done through an insurance company. So all I do on a claim is just make sure the instructions are followed. The floor is level, the base is level, you know, full coverage of thin set. The screws are 12 inches up, joint sealant in the channel. You know, the channel's recreated. I've been on those jobs too, where they just cut the base and they stuck the board onto the top with joint sealant there, but it failed. So that's something that would not be covered under the warranty. So we dry fit the board. Here's a good example too.
It doesn't matter, the height of it.
All right.
Yeah.
So here we're tight.
3.5 gallon.
I want
Yeah.
to draw a line right here every time. Also, at the same time, I mark the studs up at the top to give me a reference point of how far down to push the board. Well, and when I say that, I know a lot of guys are like, yeah, mark the studs. That's a good idea too, but what I'm saying is if my studs are continuing up here, I mark the stud. I put a marker on the stud at the top of the board, so that gives me a reference, because I'm going to lose that mark down there when I fill it with joint sealant. So now I push this down into my joint channel to my marks on my stud. So, and I'll do that again right here so you guys can see. So dry fit the board. Now I'm going to throw a couple hypotheticals out there. What ifs, right? So what if the channel is loose? My wall was crooked and I didn't catch it when I dry fit the shower base on the floor. So now I got this big gap right here, right? I just said I don't want any big gaps bigger than 1/8 of an inch, but the shower base is already on the floor, thin set. So what I want to do is pull this out. I see I'm tight over here, but I'm loose over here. So maybe I'll grab a couple of these. I grab a couple shims, or maybe wood shims or something like that. Stick this right here. Glue, I glue it with the Wedy joint sealant. Stick that right there. Now, I go to put my board back. Alright. Now we're tight. I rasped it over here. We're tight up here. We're tight in our channel down here. See, when I have my wall that crooked like that, it might flare slightly at the bottom, but even less than it would with a rubber liner, you know?
Right.
So, but I'm tight at the channel, which is what really matters. We're waterproof. That's the key. What if it's too tight? So if it's loose, we shim it. If it's too tight, say I got this shower base cut so tight to the wall, I did such a perfect job, I can't even get my board down in the channel, right? I've had that happen too. And this is really, like the worst is when you get that channel filled with joint sealant and you go to set the board and you didn't dry fit it and now it's not fitting. So now you got now you got a mess.
Yeah.
So we go to dry fit the board and it's too tight. Maybe a stud was kicked out a little bit and we didn't catch it. And it's just this one little section over here. So it fits right here, but back here, it's not gonna fit. So I press it tight against my studs. I break out my multi-tool, you know, my oscillating saw, the little vibrating oscillating saw. Mark the blade a 1/2 inch. Carefully plunge that blade into the face of the board right along the channel here. And maybe it's just 12 inches here that won't fit. So I pull this back. After I make that cut, I got a little sliver of foam right here. Maybe it's a 64th or 32nd of an inch, just really just sliver. I roll that into the channel. I take my 1/2 inch construction pencil, break all that foam loose, shot back that, clean that channel out. Now my board is going to sit nice and tight down in my channel. So those are just a couple ways that you can make those slight modifications in the field, whether you're too loose or too tight, okay? Little tips and tricks for you guys. So our board is cut, we dry fit it, we're ready to stick it to the wall. So we're going to use the Wedy joint sealant in the channel, and then screws and washers. Let me get set up here with my gun. Now this gun has been sitting here for a little bit, so that developed a skin. This sealant kicks in about 5 minutes in Florida. They say 8 minutes, but I like saying 5 because in Florida, the hotter and more humid it is, the faster it's gonna kick. So just setting it aside for a few minutes, it could have a skin on it. So we wanna knock that first little bit off in the wall so we're always dealing with a fresh bead. So I'm gonna just knock this off right here on this. Bam. I got fresh bead of joint sealant here, and I'm going to fill that channel with joint sealant. I almost hate to do it because I know it's going to make a mess on that wood, but I'm doing it. So this might be another section. You guys can come on up with your camera and get a closer look of what this channel needs to look like. I see a lot of guys run a bead, a real thin bead. We want to be generous, so it's no stop and go, one continuous solid bead all the way across, just like that, okay? That's what we want that channel to look like when we set a bead to put our board, all right? And I have another example of it over here somewhere. I'll show you in a minute.
almost filled all the way to the top, right?
Almost all the way to the top, yes sir. Alright. Now, we're going to put this in at an angle. I always put it in at a slight angle like this. And I shake it down, so I shake it like this. You don't need to get a block and a hammer and start pounding on it. Just put it in at that angle, put some weight on it, and shake it on down to your marks on your studs that you placed up here. Okay? So. There it goes. So we got our line down here. Now, we filled a lot of joint sealant in that channel, and this is a very thick product. So if we can't make it all the way down to our marks on our studs, that's okay as long as we're within 1/8 of an inch. So you just want to be within 1/8 of an inch all the way down. And I'll put some weight on it, give it another shake. That's pretty close to 1/8 of an inch all the way across. So take my putty knife, I knock this first little bit off because that hardens up fast. There will be a topical bead on it. So we had a lot of squish out right there. It looks like we ran a topical bead almost, but we didn't. We always want to run that secondary topical bead. That's important. So in our topical bead, we'll extend 1 inch on each side of that seam. Thank you. So these start 12 inches up. This is important too. 12 inches, and every 12 inches after that. This last one up top, bam, I put right here. Now that next screw, I don't want to put one here and one on the next board up. I'm going to do one right on the seam. So I stop before I get to that next seam. I run a bead of joint sealant on the next board, stack the board, one screw and washer right on the seam. Over here, 12 inches up. Don't ever put any screws lower than 12 inches because if a stud is kicked back, it could suck the board out of the channel, taking away your compression. Okay, so we want to keep that compression. That's what is required for that joint sealant to cure properly. Here's my stud right here. I'm glad we marked it now. Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. It's my 1,000 count. So these are 1,000 count buckets. So if you guys are doing a lot of Wedy, you're going to save a lot of money going with 20-ounce sausages and your 1,000 count buckets. We got that?
Is it the brand new one?
Oh no, it's just got this lid right here. It's
What if you miss a stud or something? You can switch it and put some glue on it, or
you got some sealant on you?
Yeah.
There's some napkins right up there.
Thank
So
you.
yeah, if I miss a stud,
right?
so say that this is, let's move this over a little bit. So I put this right here
Okay.
and go, oh, I caught it. I was wrong the first time. Oh, I still caught it too, so. Same right here. Oops.
Right.
I pull it out, I scoot it over, hit my stud. I want to bump it so that I recess the washer slightly, but that hole, I'm just going to put a little bead of joint sealant,
Okay.
putty knife,
Okay.
no problem. Get a handful of screws.
And you set your screw gun not too.
If you have a screw gun,
Softer,
yeah,
yeah.
Right.
like a drywall that
Just
only sits at a certain depth.
So you don't want to go too deep.
No, well, just like that.
Just enough, right?
Just slightly recess that washer into the coating of the board. Just like that. Break that
Okay.
coating. Would one of y'all mind screwing this off for me, and I'll cut the next board, or at least get it marked, and I'll wait to cut it until you guys get this wrapped up. I appreciate it. I'm gonna get another board here and start cutting this.